bringing you another in our series of the secrets of the universe in the wrap-up phase. This is called the synthetic stage of science, where we gain the understanding from the knowledge that we've accumulated. Now for a century we've been probing the universe, and now it's time to summarize what we actually know. It's not a happy story in terms of public exposure to what science has discovered. You're given selective information of a titillating type. But science is collaborative and it's consensual. I'm enlisted to it, and so it doesn't make any difference what my feelings are about any danger to myself or ridicule or whatever is the case. And going against the grain of whoever's giving you the money to fill your rice bowl today, I don't do any of that. I'm totally independent. So today we're going to finally expose in summary form so anyone can understand it. I believe from high school level on this will be crystal clear to anybody who cares to know. What do we know about quantum mechanics? What's the lowdown? Summarize it. Science is about understanding. If your scientists can't explain what it is that they know, then they don't understand it. And that's the case in quantum mechanics. Richard Feynman has stated the case quite clearly that nobody can understand it. And that's been proved by Stockholm in their award of the Nobel Prize. The common perception of quantum mechanics is it's a permanent mystery. Well, what that means is that the people who know that that's not true, that we can understand it, are going to come up with their own theories. And that's what's happened. There's a whole book by a man named Kumar who simply goes through the history of quantum mechanics to delineate the theories that have been proposed for an explanation. Einstein demanded it. He was excluded by the decree of Stockholm in 2022. Einstein is shit. He doesn't have anything to say. Well, what did he say that enraged everybody so much? Bohr hated Einstein, absolutely detested the man, because Einstein was questioning Bohr. Well, Bohr was the king. He knew what he knew, and I believe that he'd pass a lie detector test. Shut up and compute, is what David Merman said was the Copenhagen explanation of quantum mechanics. You can't, agreeing with Richard Feynman. Richard Feynman is absolutely wrong, and I know that. And you should know it too. If you know anything about science and the pursuit of rational, logical solutions to rational, logical propositions, then Einstein was right, and Bohr and Feynman are wrong. Stockholm is wrong. Einstein is right. I'm an Einsteinian. I follow the Einsteinian principle, which is not Einstein's. It's the principle of science itself. Why are we doing science? Here's the answer to that grim question. We're doing it because we know that any rational question that we can propose to the universe to get the answer from the universe, that would be science, that the universe will answer, and it will answer accurately and truly. But there's a caveat. You have to follow the rules of logic. And there are many, many ways to go wrong. Well, in our exploration of the confrontation between Bernardo Kastrup and Tim Maudlin, they each have a different point of view on how to solve a paradox in science. The quantum mechanical paradox is the single most important unanswered question of our time, except for the structure of the universe itself. Well, this actually is the structure of the universe. That's the micro level. And now we need to turn to Roger Joseph Bošković, on whom I am something of an expert now. And he has the answer. He did. We've had the answer for 250 years, but that's overstating the case. And now we need to get into the nitty-gritty. It's easy to just go off into abstractions. I've been exposed to these abstract systems that Tim Maudlin and Bernardo Kastrup represent. Kastrup is an iconoclast, and Tim is a dogmatist. And those two will never agree. There's always an iconoclast for every dogma. because the dogma is wrong. Well, the iconoclast is going to seem wrong, and Bernardo definitely seems wrong to me. He certainly seemed wrong to Tim, but here's the difference between Tim and Bernardo and myself, is that I see them both crystal clearly. But here's the problem between the two. They cannot see where they themselves are wrong. That's where I come in. This is what science is forced to do. And only someone in my class can actually arbitrate this. And that's what I am forced to do. I'm enlisted to science. I'm putting my ass on the line. Well, that's what you do for your country. And my country is heaven. It's not the earth. It's not where Tim lives. It's not where Bernardo lives. Way above them. So I'm going to give you the secret of quantum mechanics. In a nutshell, since that is what I'm trying to do in this series, is just summarize my 360 lectures so that you get the nuggets, because only I can say it. If someone else knows these secrets in any way, shape, or form, they're incapable of communicating it, and I know why. And so should you by now, if you've been listening to me at all. You know why these men cannot speak. They don't speak for science. Nobody cares about your theories. What's the answer? Anybody have any ideas, any leads? That's the irony of heaven, is you're going to have to get this from me. I'm out here doing my job. What are you doing? Weak because it's too late to play patty cake. What is the answer to quantum paradox? Well, it's not the many worlds theorem that Tim thinks is the answer. And it's not anything that Bernardo says. Both of these men are doing the right thing in their own way. I'm not against them. I'm not enlisted to their system. I'm enlisted to heaven. So what is the answer to the quantum paradox? In the Polya system of approaching any puzzle, you first must be sure of what your question is. So, the solution to the quantum paradox begins by knowing what the paradox is. And the nature of a paradox is so bizarre and eerie that the actual problem is that you can't even say what it is. Well, I can. So without going into the details of why men are forced to make these ridiculous guesses, the only way to get around this is to actually know, first of all, what is the problem? I'll tell you. It's linear geometry. And here's the reason. When you have one state, and a particle would be an electron or a proton or a photon, as it's conceived to be a particle. They have states which we can measure. Photons have state. Electrons have state. And the proton is a very peculiar particle. I say it is the only actual particle with a broad footnote, because what about the electron? These are the two particles that come into interaction. How? We call it charge relationship, but that's a surrogate name for gravity. And that's well known now, but nobody says so because it's hard to prove. But it's obvious that that's the case, is that electrons are under the gravitational influence of a protonic center. So what is the proton and what is the electron? What does this have to do with quantum mechanics? You're using linear geometry to measure curvature at the subatomic level, at the basic level, at where everything meets. Linear algebra and linear geometry and the number system used in science are synonymous. A geometric object called the line. Well, that doesn't work. We fooled ourselves because it works with calculus when you're trying to build things on Earth, and then you can just shave off the delta and get the precision that you need. You can't do that with the universe because it's a completed work. And so you're going to have to deal with it on its own terms, which is purely curvature. That can be simplified geometrically to two objects called the circle and the sphere. This is well known, so I'm not making anything up. I'm just presenting it to you in a way that you're never going to hear from anyone else. But it's the only solution path, is to see why we have a measurement problem. That's part of the quantum paradox. Okay? So it's because we're using lines to measure everything. We have to. We have no choice. Because the linear numbers are computable. So we get computations from linear numbers. Well, that's linear geometry. And the universe does not use that geometry. It's that simple. So try to grasp that right now with me, with just a bolt out of the blue insight, so you don't have to consult my previous lectures where I exhaustively prove everything I just said, which is basically one thing. You're using linear geometry to explain spherical phenomena at the limit, the quantum limit. The inverse of that is the cosmological problem of physical infinity, which I have dealt with and solved. Well, going in, you reach a reciprocal limit. And that was discovered and proved Roger Josip Bošković 250 years ago. I thoroughly have digested Rüger's book, Theoria Philosophiae Naturalis. He says over and over and over again what the answer is. Because at the time, what he was saying improved on Leibniz and improved on Newton. And he got it right, and everyone knows it now, and everyone's hesitant to say so, but it's coming out. The top-notch physicists who are struggling to continue science in some way just get the answers we need. We know we can, we should, we haven't yet. Why not? It's because we're using the wrong geometry. Okay, we cannot measure the inner limit of anything. That's the quantum. Is the quantum real? Max Planck kicked off the quantum revolution with his he didn't like his own discovery, but he discovered the transfer of energy in the universe is not a continuous function. Because that is the paradox, is a jump. Schrödinger hated this. Einstein learned to hate it. Everyone hates it who knows anything intuitively about how the universe actually works. And Rüger laid it out. He must have said it 500 times in his book, over and over again, repetitive almost to the point of tedium, but I read it all. Because I never get tired of hearing the right answer to a paradox that has baffled everybody to the present day. Nobody can figure this out. Rüger did, and so did I. And my discoveries have absolutely proved everything that Rüger said. I got it before him, chronologically after him, but I didn't know about his discoveries when I made my discoveries about quantum mechanics using spheric geometry, which I discovered in 2022. It has its own number system, extraordinarily profound. It's axiomatic curvature. You may recognize the word curvature from Einsteinian geometry. Do you know what time-space geometry is? It's linear. Geometry to explain curvature. Gravity is a spherical phenomenon. So is the quantum paradox. It's due to a limit in our ability to measure with lines. Because if you draw the diameter of a circle, this also applies to a sphere, it's much shorter. The ratio between the diameter, that's the straight line, and the entire circle is 2 pi. That is something you're going to need to face directly now, because that is the quantum paradox. You're looking at it in your mind right now. A circle with a diameter. Which one is longer? It's not just that the circle is longer. It's in a different dimension. It's curved. That has a very significant meaning in mathematics at a particle-to-particle relationship. You'll never get it with linear algebra or linear geometry or indeed with your linear number system. You can't. What you get instead is the quantum paradox. The converse is true, actually the reciprocal. When you try to get the whole universe, to do anything with it at all, Big Bang or otherwise, you're trying to integrate the entire thing. You can't. You cannot integrate the entire universe. You don't know the edge. And the quantum paradox can be explained fully. All right, so here it is. The quantum paradox can be stated in several ways, and the Polya method of puzzle solving requires, and I follow this because it always works, you have to state your question precisely. Well, in this case, the quantum paradox is actually a distributed paradox because it shows up in several forms. The electron manifests the quantum paradox. That's where we get Schrödinger's cat. But the one that I'm most interested in is the collapse of the photonic wave. It's called the collapse of the wave function. Do you know what a function is? There are two kinds. There is a quantum function and there's a continuous function. We got the step function from Max Planck. Max was wrong. He had to be. And so he discovered a false quantum. There is no quantum, but there is in linear interpretation. And it's always going to be there and no one's ever going to solve it. Because it's linear. You think that your linear number system can address curvature. Obviously it can't. The Greeks knew it couldn't. So what's the actual answer? Here's the answer. At the relationship, the ultimate relationship of anything to anything else is a curve. It's not straight. It's curved. And this explains everything in subatomic physics. Everything is a curve. But there comes a point because of discrete moments of time. Time, according to Bošković's system, is also continuous. But under quantum mechanics, there are discrete moments of time. That's an illusion. Everything is continuous, and that's the answer. And what does that mean for mathematics and geometry and physics and understanding? What's the solution to the quantum paradox? It's that at the curve between two infinities, at the reciprocal edge going in, it's not a hard right angle. Newton would not understand what I just said unless he thought about it twice. And then Newton and I are going off to the pub and celebrate, and I'll be buying for Newton. He will understand what I just said once he thinks it through twice. The contact between two impenetrable particles is a continuous function. It's actually, in one construct, hyperbolic. In another construct, it's purely spherical, and that's the right answer. And I discovered that in 2022. The solution to the quantum paradox jumps out in your face when you look at it in spherical geometry, which I proved has its own number system. So the solution to the quantum paradox. Let's start with two, my favorite and the fave-rave right now. The quantum paradox, the way it's normally stated to a layman so that you'll be absolutely baffled, is Schrödinger's cat, which is alive and dead at the same time. The current reigning theory, which Tim Maudlin embraces and Bernardo has shot full of fucking holes, is that the cat is alive and dead at the same time. What does that mean? Tim says it's pure measurement. That's obviously wrong. And Bernardo says there's no such thing as the reality in between, and he's wrong. So what's the right answer? The cat is not alive and dead at the same time, and the universe does not split. And that's the end of the mini-worlds theory. It's incorrect. The universe does not split. Nothing splits. You're looking at two indivisible objects I'll just say that is true, but there's no footnotes. I'm just going to tell you. 2 individual particles, when they get close to each other, cannot contact. The inverse of that is the quantum mechanical paradox, where we see everything split. That's an illusion. There is no quantum. Or if you insist that there is, you can define it with a curve between 2 domains. And that's the domain of space and the domain of time. And that's the answer, which I've already explained, and that's 30 minutes. You're an American audience, I presume. Anyone else, you could probably go another 3 hours, which I would prefer. But for my American listeners, you have the attention span of a fucking mayfly. So that's the end of this lecture. In the next lecture, we're going to go into far more depth, so you'll fully understand the quantum paradox for the first time in human history. You're going to know what it is, and you're going to see the result. In the geometry that I discovered, the solution to everything in physics now is to switch number systems. And that will also solve the cosmological paradox. So I hope you tune in. You'd better if you have any doubts about what all this means, because I know and nobody else does. Because Roger's dead for 250 years now, but his name is coming back up. Stay tuned and keep looking up. You're going to get the answers you need from joining your intellect and your consciousness with universal intellect and universal consciousness. You can't look at God, but you can look at exactly what He wants you to look at and He told you to look at. Jesus said that. Look at the night sky. If you're blind, have someone lead you out and explain what's over your head. Because that's as close to God as you're ever gonna get, but it's close enough for Him. Stay tuned. This is Anagalactic, bringing you the secrets of the universe. The quantum paradox, fully solved. Stay tuned.